Want to introduce you to somebody. His name is Chris Bosch. He has most recently, in terms of his church life, been the chair of council of Clearview Christian Reformed Church. He is also the lead for Chisel Consulting, and by virtue of the February Canada Corp meeting, he was hired to walk the Canadian side of the church through the opportunity side of the challenge of meeting Canada Revenue Agency regulations compliance. For you see, if we have to restructure and reorient and change ministries around, or the structure of how we do our ministry, if we have to change that around, then necessarily we would ask the question, well, how do we do that best in the most God-honoring, ministry-effective, fiscally responsible, and all sorts of other positive ways, as opposed to just restructuring, letting the chips fall where they may, and cleaning up the mess later. We wanted to put some intentionality behind it now.
The work that we've been doing with the Canadian restructuring team, it's such an important moment, I think, in the life of the Christian Reformed Church in North America. And yes, in some ways, especially for the Canadian Christian Reformed Church, we are seeing the Lord and the Holy Spirit definitely just saturating this process. And we're so grateful for that. And just want to make sure that everybody has a good idea of who's on this team. We want to make sure that there's good line of sight into who's been participating so far. So you can see good representation from the Canadian Corp board, also functionally across a number of different kinds of ministries, and also geographically. And we've got some really good age distribution as well. And it's been fun working with this team, as you can imagine, because I'm sure all of you know these people. And a couple of them obviously are on this call today as well. So that's who's been involved so far. Going to the next slide. And I'd like to read this for you because this mandate statement has been carefully crafted. So let's just make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what the Canada Corp and the Council of Delegates has given us in terms of an approved mandate. And that is to investigate and recommend how best to structure the Canadian CRC to ensure operational independence while preserving the desire for binational collaboration and optimal ministry effectiveness. Now, we could spend some time unpacking that, but I think you can see in the various clauses and language that we're using there, that this has been chosen very carefully to state a number of things. And in the next slide, I'll kind of flesh that out in terms of the how. How have we been actualizing this mandate, which is not complete by any means. We're in the midst of it right now. But I think what's important for us to share, and Darren gave a nod to it in his opening statements, is what's our posture? And we've been reminding ourselves as a team. Darren's been ensuring that this is infused in all of his communication as well with our American, brothers and sisters, as well with the council delegates, any group that we've been speaking with. But we are owning that as a team as well, and we believe it's important to pass this along to you as Canadian ministry staff as well. That our posture is one of collaboration and contextualization. And again, these words are chosen very carefully, because let's be honest, there is a thread of concern right now in the denomination that what we are participating in is potentially a division and a split, and choose whatever language you might want to use to describe that. And we want to make it really clear, like if not super clear, that this is not about separation and division. This is really about collaboration and contextualization. This is about what does the Lord have in store for the unique characteristics of what it means to do ministry in Canada as part of the Christian Reformed Church. And that's what that means. How has this been prompted? Well, it's been prompted by, and we don't want to leave the whole explanation there, but it's been prompted by this legal requirement. Let's just call it what it is. The Canadian Revenue Agency increasingly, but for some time, has been making a point of ensuring that Canadian ministries are staying on side with the regulations that they have for Canadian charities. And as we've received legal counsel on this, and as the Council of Delegates and the Canadian Corporation have deliberated about this, it became really clear that it was time to now investigate what does staying on side with the CRA regulations for a Canadian charity actually mean? What does it mean to do and own our own activities as a Canadian charity? What does it mean to have direction and control as a Canadian charity? And we received as a team a very specific presentation by someone who knows about this quite well. And we're not going to go into the details of that, but once you get into the details of what the CRA means by own activities and direction and control, there is an explosion of information there that is just, we realize we need to be more deliberate, more formal as a Canadian charity in terms of what that means for independence, more autonomy to satisfy the CRA requirements. Now, again, I want to make it very clear on behalf of the CRT, the whole explanation is not there. It's not a legal thing, but it prompts us to start thinking about, as Darren has said, the opportunity now that we can be taking in this moment to say, what does it now mean to now collaborate and contextualize Canadian ministry? And that, I hope, should excite everyone on this call. So this is not about separation and division. This is about how do we collaborate even better with our US brothers and sisters, and how do we contextualize ministry in Canada, because there is something unique about being in Canada and responding to the unique context and issues and challenges that we do have in Canada. So that's our mandate. I'm going to go to the next slide here. And it's one thing to state the mandate, but it's another to express the how, right? And we all know that as leaders, as people that participate in teams, it's usually not the what of what you're doing, it's usually the how. So how are we going to flesh out, manifest this mandate? And we believe it comes down to three things to simplify it. It comes down to, just as I explained, ensuring that there's CRA compliance for Canadian charity. It's very important. If we're not, we will sacrifice something that we don't want to sacrifice, which is our existence in Canada. That's on the far end of the spectrum of risk. And so we need to mitigate that risk by doing this, number one, really, really well. And we believe that we are. Number two is now taking advantage of, well, what does it mean then if we are going to look at collaboration and contextualization of ministry in Canada? It's going to have implications for structure and staffing and potentially new revenue models. Basically, how are we going to align ourselves now with the Canadian version of the ministry priorities? What is important in the Canadian context? As soon as we start having that conversation, we know there's going to be implications for structure and for revenue and what gets our attention in Canada. And again, I'm hoping that with me and the CRT team, you're going to find that an exciting moment to be contemplating that. And then the third one is, and we're never going to forget about this, and it's a high value within the Christian Reformed Church, is consistently and regularly consulting with the local church and through classes, with ministry leaders like yourselves and with the CMT to ensure that there's resonance with this. And so we're in the midst of doing that right now, and we'll continue to do that. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And this slide really tries to articulate where have we come from. It's essentially from beginning to end as we know it right now. What are we attempting to do as a CRT in service of the denomination and in service of collaboration and contextualization? And so you can see that the early part of our engagement as a team has been really around listening and learning together. And And although we continue to do the listening and learning throughout this process, it's important to note that we started there. We knew that we had to learn more about CRA regulations, for example. We had to receive storytelling from Canadian ministry leaders within the CRC and to tell us, to give us context for, let's be honest, where are the challenges with being part of a binational organization? And where are the opportunities as they see it? So we went into a listening and learning moment. Coming out of that was very specifically, and we're in the midst of that, and then leading into the next one, which is drafting the priorities. So, and we want to iterate the importance of this as well, because many of you are going to be wondering, well, don't we have ministry priorities already? And yes, we do. There's no doubt about that. And Sid Helema and a team are leading a process right now called Our Journey 2025. And so you need to know for sure that we're not neglecting any of that. If anything, everything that we're doing is complementary to that good work that is going on right now and ongoing. So we are creating linkages back into the binational version of the priorities for the denomination. That is not being neglected.